We'll wait till 4:15.
Just right on time.
Oh, yeah? It's 4:14. That's still like early.
Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the February 8th Plan Commission for the City of Watertown to order. Brandy, would you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, Aletsky.
Present.
Culhane.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Spire.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
Kays.
Yep.
And Dolly.
Here.
Hanson and Brink are absent. We have a quorum. I'm missing someone else. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. And today we only have the Plan Commission meeting, so it is a majority vote. So in this case, we have 7 members here, so a 4 in the affirmative will pass.
Thank you, Brandy. Item number 3 is invitation for public comment participants submittal. If you have something that is not on the agenda that you want to talk about, there's a time for that at the end of the agenda. Please come up and see Brandy to talk about that if you want to do that. Number 4, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, please? Or any changes, I guess, Brandy?
Nope.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 5, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for the January 18th, 2024 minutes?
Ford moves. Second.
Any comments, concerns about the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Number 6A, commission consideration of ordinance number 24-1, amending the zoning map for City of Watertown for a portion of Outlot X, Block 8 of Valley View, 4th edition, from R1 Single Family Residential District to R2 Single Family Attached Residential District. Brandy, take it away.
Thank you, Liam. So this is, as stated, this is a rezone request in the Valley View subdivision, just north of 14th Avenue and west of 2nd Street, northwest. And this area has obviously been concept planned previously, and they are proposing, well, concept planned and platted and annexed and zoned as R1 Single Family Residential, and then now they're proposing to rezone it to R2. This does fall in line with what we saw before us. Let's see here if I had the date. In 2021, where they rezoned the southern portion of the, well, actually, the northern lots of Cayley Court to R2 to allow for duplex development in this area. There have been a handful of duplexes constructed here, and then they're wanting to mimic that with the lots on the north side or on the south side of Cayley Court. And this area, they have submitted construction plans that will extend Cayley Court, as shown here on this map, around to create the court. And then the R2 lots in this block, they'll butt up against each other. And all of these lots do meet the minimum lot size for the R2 district as well. And with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Chair, are there any green space implications with the increased density?
No.
Any other questions for Brandy before we open the public hearing? I'm going to open the public hearing and ask that if there's any representative from the petitioner, explain what's going on. They come up and speak now, and then we'll take for and against comments. Anybody from J&J? Anybody to speak for or against this who is not a representative? Okay, going once, twice. Anybody out there in the internet ether world? I will close the public hearing. I'd ask for a motion and a second, and then we'll have any discussion if necessary, and then vote.
Motion to approve, recommend approval to the city council.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
So everything still on the north side of this will retain a R1 status.
Correct.
And it's consistent with the concept plan that we had talked about in the past in the platting.
Yes, so when it was platted, it was originally R1 as shown here. You can see the area that has been annexed and zoned with the yellow coloring. And in the concept plan, they had shown all of these R2 areas in this location to be R1, but then this is the process then to go through to rezone it. They don't have to amend the concept plan because they're past the subdivision process.
And generally, if, it probably would be different if there was a bunch of R1 houses on the north side of this development, and people thinking I thought it was gonna be R1 when I purchased my house, so in this situation, there's kind of a no harm, no foul.
Yeah. And that's where too, you would have probably, well, potentially you'd have people show up for the public hearing. But there are no other adjacent landowners because it hasn't been developed yet, which is where, like, this is the best time for a upzoning of residential property to happen.
And generally, the land use plan is consistent, we just generalize residential, we don't get specific at this level land use plan, so we're consistent with that.
Yep. And it does break it down to like high density or low density,
We're
but
still low density
Yeah.
at Twins. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question, Chair.
Please.
Brandy, could you just give us a little refresher as to why the increased density doesn't affect the green space, and then where exactly the green space is? It's been a while, I can't remember.
yeah. So in the well, for one, with our R2 district and R1, they are low density already. So then when you have a R2 lot, you have to have a minimum of 10,000 square feet and 85 foot of frontage. So you're still having ample green space. You have 9-foot setbacks, same 25-foot front yard, 25-foot rear yard as the R1. Where you get into higher density in the R3 multifamily residential district, that's where we do have the requirement that there not be more than 80% of lot coverage to try to retain green space.
And what about the park area?
The park
Where
area
is that?
in this
14th, I think, right?
development, yep. And that was taken care of within their first phase, and like, as you guys are aware, every development is different on what the park board ends up accepting for the park land, and then, or if we do cash in lieu, or if it's a phased project, all things considered, but in Valley View, this park area was accepted with the first phase and the first plating of the first edition.
Thank you.
Yep.
The lots that are not highlighted in yellow and then a surrounding on the outside, those are still R1 then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the brighter yellow, that's all the R2 areas, and then that lighter yellow is R1. And then the area that is not colored but shown how it will be subdivided has not been annexed and zoned yet. Actually, it hasn't been platted because the whole quarter section has been
Just the master
annexed.
plan. That's
Yeah.
just the master plan.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments, concerns for staff or discussion? All right, Brandy, roll call, please.
All right, Dolly.
Yes.
Kays. Durgus Johnson.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Colhane.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. On to 6B, commission consideration of ordinance number 24-03, amending the zoning map of City of Watertown, South Dakota for lots 15 through 18, Block 7, Davlin's Edition, Light A1, or I-1 Light District Industrial to C3 Highway Commercial. Brandy?
All right, thank you, Liam. Let me get to my right page here. Okay, so this rezone request is for an existing lot on the south of Jensen Avenue or 10th Avenue, whichever you prefer. You can see in the petition exhibit, it is lots 15 through 18, currently zoned I-1 light industrial and proposed to be rezoned to C3 highway commercial. It does meet the minimum lot size requirements. There is an existing structure on the property. And if the property is rezoned to C3, they will have to meet the paved parking, loading, and access requirements. Currently, it is a gravel access and parking area. And then also meet the outdoor storage requirements. It's obviously, at this point, it's surrounded by I-1 light industrial. It does abut C3 zoning to the north. And so this is kind of where you'll have, like, it's a transitional time where C3 is appropriate on the south side of 10th, and then it would just be a matter of all other properties turning over eventually and creating transition zoning as well. So also with the comprehensive land use plan, I attached these for this item, these maps, to show you guys here. It does show that this would be a mix of commercial and industrial. You can see here along Highway 81 that it's commercial, showing commercial there, and then that, let's make sure here, we have mixed use again. So as we see it go to the south, that it would, and then here, again, same thing with the light industrial, regional, commercial. So, and then we'll see a transition, and that whole area is shown to be that, being within the proximity of Highway 212 and Highway 81.
Questions for Brandy before I open the public hearing?
I'll stand by for questions.
With that, I'll open the public hearing and invite whoever the proponent is for this first to speak and explain what's going on, if they're with us. Petitioner, proponent, if you have anything to say, please identify yourself.
Hi, Brian Brandwright. What we're planning on doing is putting a cheer gym in the facility. So to get in line with your ordinances, we'd have to be in the C3.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Brandwright?
And if I could follow up a little too on that. So that's where the fact that it is still surrounded by I-1, and that's the tough thing, is because we went through this ordinance amendment of the recreational facilities and where they were appropriate. And the unfortunate thing is that these type of facilities all are looking for locations, and what they need are industrial-like buildings. So they are running into a hard time with that. This location, though, this is where I'm saying that as we would see these properties that front 10th turn over into C3.
And we've got Lindner's just to the west of here. We've got commercial uses just across the street that aren't industrial. So to me, it's appropriate.
Correct. And I think there's been commercial up and down on the south side there for
Yeah,
years.
It's a half a block away from, the stuff on the corner.
Connecting points over there. Yeah, I mean, I guess connecting points adjacent to the highway. Yeah, fair enough. Anybody else to speak for or against the petition? Just please briefly identify yourself.
I'm Holly Ring. So I just wanted to give you guys a little background. We've been looking for a space since the middle of this last year. Our issue is that we need pretty much an industrial Morton building to be able to run a program like this. Unfortunately, you can't find something like that in commercial in a price point that we can afford. Thankfully, the program right now runs on Sundays, and so we don't have conflict with high traffic times or something like that. When looking at the space, thankfully Brian was willing to take it on, but looking at it, it felt appropriate because you have a hair salon and a chiropractor and Lindner's Music and all of these places that are running commercial while being zoned industrial. The struggle that we've had is that we can't run a recreational program in an industrial zone under 14. And so this was the best solution that we can find in the most appropriate area. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ring. Any questions for anybody?
Just a comment. So basically, they're gonna remove this building and replace it with a different building, or they're gonna keep the same building here? Are there any concerns just with traffic volumes of dropping off and on with a lot of young little girls coming? They kind of, is it staggered, or is it kind of, everybody shows up with 75 cars at 9 in the morning, or?
I shouldn't have left so soon. Right now, the program's running 16 kids to a team. There's 3 teams. So the older teams are able to drive, which thankfully is, there's a parking lot right across the street that they can pull into. Otherwise, the younger girls, again, it's on weekends or nights, and he has plenty of space for parking, so.
Very good, thank you.
With that, Brandy, how much of that will have to be hard surface then for parking? And how many, so how do you determine how many parking spots he needs?
So we'll look at, it'll be broken down by the use, typically, and we'll have to determine that still. But then he'll have the paved parking, loading, and so the loading and access too. So as long as there would be, the driveway would be paved to a minimum of 12 feet. So,
But the driveway and parking will be paved?
yes.
Okay. And the only reason I guess that I asked how many places, and it's just, I don't know if you were part of it when we had the one downtown here. You know, where our concerns then were the kids coming out, and we allowed that drive in front of the door, and at that time Sadie was going there, and it's like, you come out of there and you didn't know if you were gonna get hit or not, because we allowed that drive. So just in your, you know, and I know you've already thought of this, but in the planning, they have a place to stand before cars coming right up to them and, you know, picking up kids, because they do run in and drop them off and go, you know, so I get that. But I was just curious what, because you'll have an egress and then a separate, will it be kind of a loop for a drive? Is that what you're thinking, Brian, or in one way and in and out that same access?
We could do it either way.
I'm just thinking, I mean, it would be almost easier to have that loop
Right.
system, you know, so, but again, just curious.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against the petition? Going once, twice. Anybody in the internet, on the phone that wants to talk about this? Nope. I will close the public hearing.
Motion to recommend approval of the city council.
Thank you. Motion.
Second.
Second. Further discussion, questions for Brandy?
I have, thank you, Liam. I guess I think it's a wonderful idea, everything well needed, but I do have a concern because we've talked about this before, putting gym facilities in an I-1 area or near an I-1 area, and we have, it's my recollection that we've said no. Have we not? Am I wrong about that, Brandy?
So this was the previous item that we were contemplating that had, like, related to this. That was in an I-1 area that was not willing to rezone because they were renting an area that they also wanted to continue I-1 uses happening on that property. And then, unfortunately, just because we do have very minimal options of zoning districts to choose from, that we always do see C3 abut I-1 as we transition. So,
In my opinion, that specific building was smack dab in the middle of an industrial park. It wasn't on a collector or a local road. It didn't have any other regular commercial uses abutting or in close proximity. And if you take a look at Jensen Avenue today, I would say that most of Jensen Avenue is miszoned anyway. If you take a look at the corner of the Highway 81 and Jensen, you just start going all the way back towards the mall, you could, there's at least 75% of those lots probably should be rezoned to C3.
yeah.
And I think as we see more development at that Sinclair Square to the east, and then understandably maybe to the south, commercial development, it seems more congruent that this would be commercial. All right, any other?
Wait, I wasn't done, Todd.
I wasn't saying that you were.
No, right. So I see a conflict here because the thought is it will be zoned C3 sometime in the future. And in the meantime, while we await that, we're putting a gym in the middle next to potential I-1. So could you help me with that?
Yeah, so this is Plan Commission where we're not like granting a conditional use right now with Board of Adjustment. So they're not getting approval today. They're going through the rezone process. So then it will go to council for 2 hearings before it'll be approved.
The thing that could very well be done is we can fix this as a planning commission making a recommendation if staff was to reach out to those properties that are commercially used along Jensen Avenue, ask them whether they would be inclined to rezone, and that could be something that could be led by the city to rezone those properties. We've done it before in the past. Yeah.
I know, yeah, that could be an option as well. I just, as far as our workload, I don't know if that's high priority.
No, I'm not, but I'm just saying if we're looking for a clean conscience, that would be one way of handling it.
That might be problematic, though, with the container collection point, just adjacent to this and their use there. So a lot of heavy machinery coming in and out just adjacent to it.
So I still have the concern that we have talked in the past about not putting children in an I-1 area, which even though the potential for change to C3 is, I certainly agree with that, it's there. However, currently, we have to look at what the facts are, not what we hope to happen in the future. The facts are, this is I-1, and it could be anything in an I-1 district that is a permitted use, which in the past, we were very concerned about safety for the children. That's the issue I have. If we could get things changed to C3 with the other property owners in that area, I think we're putting the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart, one way or the other. I think before we put kids in an I-1 area, we need to make sure that it's a safe environment.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Case, go ahead.
I'm not going to get into an argument, but this is still it's a different request than the initial one that we're referencing. In that request, that facility was sharing a common wall with an industrial use on the other side. And we had direct testimony from the fire department saying that they did not support that. This is a use that's, for all practical purposes, on 3 sides of it, surrounded by other commercial uses. So I find it inconsistent with the premise of how we approached that denial years ago. That's just where I'm at.
And you're always going to get, like I said, C3 abuts I-1, so you're always going to get that transitional zoning. But then at least this property, and let's see what the size of it is here, but at least then it is reserving that this can only be commercial uses. It cannot be any, you can't expand I-1 uses, which are more intrusive or potentially dangerous to children. So by rezoning it, then they are reserving it, like that they're having their setbacks and the size of the lot, which I'm gonna pull up here. But you're most likely gonna, a lot of C3 properties do abut I-1, but you're just not going to continue industrial uses.
That's the hope. I guess I have an issue with that, and I also have another issue with the kids potentially running across Jensen Avenue to go into a car in the parking lot for Studio 212. But that's neither here nor there. That's in the back of my mind. So I guess I'm looking at the facts as they sit today, not on how we hope they would be. And that's how I will base my vote. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. I appreciate the good discussion. Anybody else have anything else to say before we take a vote? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call, please, Brandy.
All right, Aletsky,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Ford,
No.
Spire,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Motion passes, one opposed. Item 6C, Prairie Haven Annexation, First Edition, Annexation and Zoning. Commission consideration of Resolution 24-5, initiating annexation of a tract of land contiguous to the city of Watertown, known as Prairie Haven, First Edition, and commission consideration of Ordinance 24-2, establishing the zoning designation of R1C, Compact Single Family Residential District for the property to be known as Prairie Haven Annexation, First Edition.
Okay, thank you, Liam. So, as stated, this is an annexation and zoning proposal for the next phase of a property being brought in for the Prairie Haven subdivision. And as you will recall, we saw this concept plan of this area come forward in 2021. This is just south of the Derby Downs subdivision. They have platted the property immediately adjacent to Golf Course Road and Third Avenue, which you can see in the brownish red color and the orange outlines. So this property is, what do we got going on here? This property is within the sewer water territory, so they will be required to work with Watertown Municipal Utilities to get those payments or those fees collected. And which is also why they're bringing in the 35-acre piece up front. And that's what they did with their first phase. And then obviously their second phase will include the area that has not been platted yet. But to be able to utilize the 35 acres and then also include it in their next plat, that's why it's not exactly following the phasing plan on the concept plan, which is fine because this is a minor amendment. So they are including the cul-de-sac area, which originally was shown in phases 6 and 7, and then all of phase 3. And that's just to meet that 35-acre minimum requirement to deal with the consent decree. Other things, they're zoning, they're proposing to zone this R1C, single-family compact residential district, which they had done with their first phase. All of the lots are conforming. This property, when you guys see the plat come forward, that's when we will discuss the park dedication, because with the park board, when the concept plan was approved, we had that phase to collect some cash in lieu, and then also because they have the park area is planned for, let's see, a later phase, phase 7, in this area here on that corner. So that's why then they're paying cash in lieu until we get to that park area or get to somewhere where we could include it with a sooner phase. But that will be something that we will discuss when we bring the next plat forward.
We're just basically looking at annexing the property and attaching a zoning designation that's consistent with the preliminary plat and the concept plan.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good summary, Todd.
Any other questions for Brandy?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Chair. So where will you access all of these lots? Just like off of Third Avenue? No, that's not what I see. Just one access off of Golf Course?
Yep, so First Avenue, and then there will be the 26th, and then over here, this line is covering it. So then 28th will also connect.
Any other questions before I open the public hearing?
One, please.
Go ahead.
So the one on the north, right where your cursor is, are those lots being accessed onto 26th or into this development?
Into the development. So you can see that's why they'll have double frontage. That happens sometimes because this is considered a collector street. So then they will have access to the south where that right of way is.
We're going to have one public hearing on both, for a combined both the resolution and the ordinance. I will open that public hearing and ask if there's a proponent or the petitioner or whoever the representative for the petitioner is, if they want to say anything. Bill, please come and identify yourself.
Arrow. You want to push that button?
Bill Riefenberger, for Prairie Haven Properties. This is just a continuation of what we've already started, and that'll be 2, maybe even 3 plots before we get through this next phase. But this portion is basically, we need to have more than what we've got to get the next phase in, and the 35 acres is basically somewhat dictated by dealing with the sewer or water. If I make it into little parcels, I gotta pay the same amount of money for every parcel. So this is the least expensive. I mean, that's just the logistics of it.
How much land, Bill, do you have left? I could do the math, but how much land do you have left that when you're bringing the other
Well,
pieces?
153 acres, and so this 35,
35 and throw about half there, yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna have a problem on the last little piece, because we're come up with 140, and we got 153, so at some point in time.
How's the existing development going for you? You guys?
Well, I'm a little behind what I was hoping for schedule, but otherwise things are good. All the streets are in, fully paved, and the curbs are all in. We've got 12 houses going out there. 4 of them are sold. The other ones are under construction. Everything's going pretty good so far, so.
Is this also going to be financed with some of that housing money from the state with your infrastructure? Or are you guys doing that on your own?
The infrastructure, well, we did the TIF,
Okay, the TIF, okay, that's right.
yep, which I suspect we'll consider on the next phase, but we actually aren't planning on starting on the next phase until 2025.
Okay, thank you.
I want to get as many of these other ones sold first, so that, because of the TIF, I don't want to have an empty lot sitting there, okay?
Hey, Bill, have you repaved the bike path?
Yep, all done.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Commissioner, sorry.
Thank you. So 2025 is the next one you're thinking. Is that, so that's how long we'll have to wait for any actual playground space there because of the cash in lieu? Or is there playground space now? Or can you just give us a little update on that, please?
No, and I think that's going to have to be discussed with the park board as far as what they want. Initially, they said we had paid some money, and preliminary is considered to be that corner, but that was just a preliminary. There was no definition of that. If we need to consider some other spot, then that's going to be fine. At one time in my thought process is what I would have said. I would have loved to see some kind of a childcare facility out there, and then we could put the park next to it. But in a lot of my discussions with other people, they said there's plenty of properties in Watertown that we should be using for that before we take new property for that. So the bigger issue is getting the people to do the work than it is the property to hold the facilities in. So, sometimes you have a thought that makes sense, but there's other reasons why that probably isn't going to make any sense. So to answer your question, I don't have any plans yet, but when we present the next phase, which is pretty well laid out already, we'll have that discussion. That's a whole nother process that we have to go through separately.
Isn't there a park in Derby Downs Edition, a big one? And is there park equipment in the rodeo grounds too?
Yeah, the rodeo grounds gets to be pretty close to that quarter-mile mark that we like to limit. And then Derby Downs, do they just utilize?
Isn't it on, no, I thought it was on the north side. I thought there was some
There's this
park
place over
equipment.
there, I believe.
Is this it? Looks like it. Like a park
I'll
area
be honest,
there.
I never looked for, I know there's something on there, but I never had occasion to use it, so I
It's
don't
well
know.
used, I know that.
Thank you. Any more questions for petitioner before I cut them loose? Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against this, either 24-5 or 02, 2402? Anybody online? Going once, twice? I will close the public hearing. I would request a motion first on Resolution 24-5, and then discussion. That is the annexation.
Motion to recommend approval to on the annexation.
Motion by Kays,
I'll second that.
second by Oletsky. Any further discussion relating to the annexation? Questions, comments, concerns for Brandy? Brandy, roll call, please.
All right. Spire,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Cohane,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I would request a motion for 24-02, and that is the zoning R1C compact. It's kind of redundant, I guess, R1C zoning.
Motion to recommend approval.
Motion by Kays,
I'll second.
second by Spire, sorry. Further discussion, questions for Brandy? Discussion amongst us? Hearing none. Brandy, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Cohane,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Oletsky.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to number 7, open public comment. Mr. Magstad, do you have anything you wanted to tell us?
She covered it with the water.
Anybody else want to have anything to say for the good of the order, as my father would say? Number 8, new business. Nope, no new business, right, Brandy? Good,
Nope.
thank you. Any old business, Brandy? Nope.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Oh,
never
yes.
mind. All right,
Oh,
all
yeah.
right.
You can always
Commissioner
count on
Ford,
me.
go
Ah,
ahead.
Here I am again.
No, go ahead, old business.
I just would, again, like to express my concern over the cash in lieu. And I would hope the council would take a strong look at that and
I would concur.
consider that huge area eventually. And that's on the north side. And there's been other times. So just registering again my concern over the cash in lieu of actual parks in developments.
We should really be looking at having park facilities in every quarter section.
Correct.
Well, yeah, so we've
Yeah.
got 2 of them coming in that neither one has a decent park. And
Which-
the hill is not a
Constitute
play area. Sorry, it's got to be flat.
Are you
So-
talking about the one?
Both of them. I
the
mean, I
14?
think that the
Valley
one out
View.
here is going
Yeah.
to be pretty much a slope too, Liam.
So,
No, I agree, and great comments, Commissioner Ford. It's very frustrating to watch
So-
kind of time and time again that the park stuff seems
I
like it
just-
gets to be
It's.
deprioritized.
yes,
It gets very low
much so.
prioritization.
Yeah.
And these new developments tend to attract younger families. And if we want young people to come to Watertown or to stay in Watertown that have kids, parks are a big deal. You know, I grew up at Highland and Harper and, you know, those kinds of stuff,
Right.
Lincoln.
And this development that's going out there is for families. I mean, we're doing the
Exactly.
compact and we
Right.
don't even have the park. That's asinine.
And how we can have that park along 14th Avenue right there is just sad.
so if I just can add a few comments, Valley View, I mean, that's a very large area and it is set back quite a ways. There's a bike trail there. There's area on the east side of that lot or of that property that is flat that I believe they're planning to put equipment there because that is, I believe, I'll measure that. It's a large park. Or area, or at this point, open space. And with Prairie Haven, it is planned to have a park here in the southeast corner, which will tie into the bike trail. But the thing about it is, obviously, it's in a later phase of just where things are falling with their development. Now, that is something that we discussed with the park board and with Plan Commission. Plan Commission sees where the park is going at the time of concept plan. So if you're not comfortable with it, that needs to be discussed up front because we can't be holding projects up then because of what we overlooked potentially at the beginning.
I don't have a problem with the location of that of that park there. I think it's a timing of construction, because you're talking about having 2/3 to 3/4 of that development done before the park is being constructed. So I think there should be a natural trigger point if I'm bringing in a quarter section of land, that the park is being constructed, at least when you have half of the development done, and not waiting till the 7th phase of a 7-step process.
Or God forbid, the development doesn't continue to develop,
Right.
and all of a sudden you've got you've got phases 1 through 3 done and no park in perpetuity because
Right.
of external factors, interest rates or whatever, can't find people to do something, whatever it be.
And we did discuss the park areas for several, and it's a matter of a balancing act. We may not be happy with the park placement, but we like everything else, and so we just say, all right, we like 80% of this, so we're going to go with it. It's not that it wasn't discussed. And so that's why I brought it up again. Not only the timing, as Todd mentioned, which is, it's a family area, but also I just have a personal issue with the cash in lieu of parks, because
Right.
we're trying to attract young families, keep people with kids here. Those people have no idea why they don't have a park.
And, okay, so the Park and Rec Department is going through the Parks Master Plan process as well. And we have, after 2021, when this concept plan was approved, we have amended the ordinance that spells out the cash in lieu to bring it into line with what a property is worth, because it was so not apples to apples before. So now, so it's 5% of the total land area, and we've been taking that in the phases that they're platted, because we want to make sure that if a development does not move forward, that we are at least collecting money that could buy land, and that it is market value, not assessed ag land value. And so then and then also we don't need, like for Valley View, like that large park area, we don't need 5% of the 160 acres necessarily. It might be that we can say, okay, we'll take 5 acres or 3 acres, because it's also a matter of maintenance and management for Park and Rec then. So if they can split it and do some land and some equipment, or cash in lieu, because then they can put that towards equipment. And now that it's more in mark, I think that we're gonna see that is a huge benefit already, and that has been amended. So we just haven't seen another plat come forward that has park area that needs to be collected.
I guess just from a planning standpoint, though, I don't know what I know the land use plan has suggested policies regarding park locations and placements, but I think that's probably from where we could be doing a better job being more specific, that if a quarter section, whether it's one individual owning it or if there's 5 people that own the 160 acres, a policy should be that somewhere in this quarter section, there should be a regional park, not a neighborhood park, but a regional park, because you're talking about pulling people in from a half a mile around. And that regional park is something akin to a Highland Park or something like that. That's going to be a 20-acre park or a 10-acre park servicing that 160 acres. I mean, there are design standards, and there's professionals that work for the city that understand it. But maybe the direction of what the community is going to want is not fleshed out enough. And if there's something that we can do to provide that direction, I guess that's, we should.
Well, and the problem I have with the one that's up by Derby Downs, in that corner, without a fence around it, the ball goes rolling. You're running into 2 busy streets. So I don't like that it's not in a neighborhood. I mean, yeah, the ball can cross when somebody's going through the neighborhood also. But, I mean, if you want to just get morbid about it, and child abduction. I mean, my goodness, you're right on a big street, they can take off and go.
They're
We're in a neighborhood.
45-mile-an-hour roads.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, that's where we're putting our park. And, if I lived out there, I wouldn't really want my child to go to the park, because it's not, in my opinion, it's not safe. It's not surrounded by my neighbor that I know across the park. That, you know what I'm saying? So it just opens, like I said, you can get morbid about it and say, yeah, I mean, why would I want to send my kid down there, which is, I live way up in that corner, where if it's more centrally, you get to know the people surrounding the park and you know, a child gets hurt, someone's more apt to see that happen. You know, that's why I just think having it in the neighborhood makes more sense than shucking it out in the corner to just say, oh, we got a park. At least we, you know, that's all that one is sufficing, if you ask me.
Very good comments. I appreciate it, Commissioner Ford, bringing that to our attention, and I agree with you. Randy, hopefully you took a bunch of notes so you can bring that to the council.
I got a
Well,
Any need
and
Anything else for the good of the order?
so Liam, if I can please follow up on where they landed as far.
Briefly, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So here's where, when the first phase for plating was brought to Park Board, this is the motion that was made. So to approve the proposed park area identified in the conceptual plan for the Prairie Haven development and accept cash in lieu for phase 1 of the development in the amount of $2,462. And to review the remaining park dedication area at the next phase of development. So the plat will come forward, the next plat, back to Park Board. So then all of these concerns can be addressed with them and potentially, and we'll take it from there at that time.
Perfect. Thank you. Any need for executive session?
I did have another new business item,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brandy.
or old business, sorry.
We're good.
So as I touched on last week, I brought up how I was gonna send out invitations for small group meetings with the Plan Commission to go over the proposed amendments to Title 21 for recodification. And that I was planning to get those sent out beginning of February. We're a little behind schedule, so I would expect, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, that you guys will be receiving email invitations to select dates that work best with your schedules so that I can have individual meetings with the smaller groups. Heath, Lisa, and myself. Heath Von Lisa Carrico. So that we can go through those with you guys. What I'm doing, the reason for the delay is I'm creating like a presentation. So for one, you guys are all receiving consistent information and then highlighting the larger or the more impactful items and proposed changes. So
Is this dovetailing with the email I got from Mike Danforth about the CL?
no,
That's different?
yeah,
Okay. Is that still in process or don't you know?
I would just say,
Not sure.
I can jump in here. I have asked the city attorney to weigh in on the correct process for doing this so that we're in compliance with both our city charter as well as the requirements around open meeting laws and how we need to go about this in conjunction with the city council and the plan commission. So I would wait until we get that official word.
So, Blake, are you talking about because I've already consulted.
No,
No,
the other
Okay.
item.
no.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you, Commissioner Dolly. I appreciate you chiming in there. Yeah, there are some concerns about open meetings and whether or not and making sure that we follow the proper procedure to amend the CL district. And I think,
Cross the Ts and dot the Is.
yep, I think that's in the works. That's separate from what you're talking about, but I
Yes.
appreciate your comments too, Brandy. Anything else? Okay,
Oh, not that I have.
sounds good. Any need for executive session?
No.
Wonderful. We are adjourned.
All right, thank you.